I go into the woods as often as I can in order to set myself free. And that often feels like the greatest rebellion after spending many, many years hyperfixated and focused on chasing prestige. Now, I chase rivers. So, let's go on an adventure together. I'm Mel, if you haven't met me before, and I'm an adventure artist, which means I go on adventures like this and do exploring like this, and that's where I draw all of the inspiration from my art. Now, I haven't always followed this particular map. It's taken me quite a long time to rewire my thinking and get myself where I am now. I've had to plot new territory, new maps, and completely rewire my thinking, which has taken a really long time. It has been slowly eroded from experiences, and I find myself in a place now where I'm feeling a lot freer. I'm feeling a lot more like my inner kid, but I've had to go through some things in order to get here. So let's talk about those. It's important to remember that as people, getting out in nature like this is so important. We are essentially just complicated plants. We need lots of water as humans, lots of sunlight, and lots of care. So drawing for me is one of the best things I can do to care for myself, to be tender with myself, to experiment, to try, to practice my language without the passive aggression of something like Duolingo. Getting free looks a lot different to a lot of different people. I find that the things that are the hardest to get free from are the ways that trusted adults in your life have told you things ought to be or should be. Those trusted adults we can often turn to for advice or guidance, but we're never really taught to trust our gut or our intuition in situations where that would be smarter for us to do than to follow the advice of trusted adults. It's taken me years of therapy to be able to guide myself by what's in my belly. And it's also really hard when those trusted adults come from places of power, like professors or managers or bosses, and they tell us that there's one particular way to be or do something or act. But as artists, we shouldn't limit ourselves from those feelings from those trusted mentors or places, especially if those people don't seem happy, if you feel like their advice makes you feel ill or feel a sense of ick. I think it's hard to start to recognize those things, but they're so important. I found myself in a position where I recognized I was just following in the line of blind obedience to what I thought success looked like. In a recent video where I talked about how art schools are closing all across the United States, I discussed the fact that I fell into a trap of trying to work for free, trying to complete a CV. I was a very different person than I am now. But it's taken not just a slow erosion, but an earthquake, an upheaval, a complete shift in everything that I thought I wanted to be. These types of upheavals are painful. They're not something that people enjoy going through. I often think about it like the cracking of a foundation or the falling of a tower, if you're familiar with that card in the tarot. These archetypal moments of upheaval when we realize that institutions we respected, mentors we respected, professors, parents, trusted adults, they might have given us the wrong advice. They might have told us to do things that ended up causing us harm. And they might have put us in the wrong direction. And now we have to find guidance to go on the path ourselves. But As we're going along that path, I think it's important that we take moments and time to rest, to nourish our bodies, to make sure that we are moving in a way that brings us joy. And movement that brings you joy can be really hard, especially if you live in the United States or anywhere else that is influenced by Western workout and weight loss culture. Moving your body and being outside is also a radical thing living under the current state of hyper consumerism. We're always expected to buy something in order to solve a problem. But I find that solving the problems that I'm really having and truly untangling the web of all the cables that are knotted in the bottom of my bag, that's my brain, those things happen when I'm outside. Those things happen when I'm walking in nature, when I'm sitting and watching water run over a rock. Those things have to happen slowly, and they're processed through our bodies. Without thinking about the body when we're going through tough times, it just is going to lead to so much pain. I'm someone with a chronic illness, and it's only gotten worse since the pandemic. And there are some days where the pain is so bad that going outside and doing these hikes feels almost unbearable. However, walking slowly and taking time to just sit and observe and find moments like this, that is where the pain starts to subside. You don't have to go far for this. You might find beautiful flowers in someone's yard in your neighborhood, in a local rose garden or flower garden. Slow actions mean so much. I think it's also important to talk about the fact that freedom and going your own way, walking away from tried and true paths, or what you thought were tried and true paths, can cause a lot of anxiety. It can be really scary and almost frightening. But the more that you attempt to make things for yourself, to own the means of production, you get this opportunity to carve out more time, to carve out more intention in your life, and to access moments like this. You get the opportunity to process the world a little bit more slowly, to say enough is enough. And even if you're not actively making, when you're out and you're walking in nature, you're still an artist. When you're out and you're walking and observing all of the beauty you see in your city, you're still an artist. You're using your eye. You are still making art even if you aren't actively making something. Rewiring your brain around the concept of productivity is so important, especially to get yourself in the right head and mind space in order to come back to your studio and make some art. Or maybe you're not an artist and you're watching this to just relax. Maybe there are things in your life that you thought you had to believe or that you thought you had to do, and you're realizing that they don't feel good in your gut. So you can choose to walk away from them. You can choose to say, I don't really want to do that anymore. You can choose to start being honest and authentic, slow and deliberate. When I'm hiking, other things aren't important. I start to have to think about real human problems, like, do I have enough water? Do I know where I'm going? Do I have enough to eat? Our bodies are constantly sending us signals, even if we're not out hiking, but a lot of times we're ignoring them. And a lot of that has to do with our culture and the pace of everything, and the expectations we have from our work. But I think it's possible to start excavating layers, unlearning, and really heal ourselves as a collective and as a community. One of the biggest and most important statements for me as an artist is, what's more important, freedom or prestige? And I think prestige has so many big consequences. I always wanted to be a part of something and feel like I belonged in something. But there are certain things about doing that behavior that made me feel that I was quietly closing myself off from connections with people that I would have been able to truly connect with if I wasn't so focused on trying to fit in with the status quo of what other people wanted from me or what they expected me to be. My other favorite thing about being in nature is getting off my damn phone. I think it's funny, I use it to navigate oftentimes when I'm on hikes, but my favorite thing about being outdoors and being in the woods and being on a hike is that I don't have cell service. I don't have a way to check Threads or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. I can't look at any of that. I have to be present. I have to be in the moment. And that deliberate walking away, that deliberate putting down of the device is so liberating as an artist. I think it's the reason why so many people resonate with the concept of the morning pages in the artist's way. Because the simple act of making time for yourself to listen to what's going on in your brain and put those words to paper, it feels so rebellious and it feels so good. As humans, we should have more time to ourselves to process and to revel in the beauty around us. Time and space to process and to think, to ask questions of ourselves, to really consider what are our values and what's guiding us and why. I mentioned earlier that I have a chronic illness, and because of that, I hike really slowly. I'm not interested in trail running or speed hikes. This hike is actually partially on the Pacific Crest Trail, but I know my body is never going to let me complete the PCT, and that's okay. Slow and deliberate paces allow us a chance to discover beautiful stuff all around you. Remember that just taking a photo of something is a way to note it for a sketch or a story later on. The art that I make now would have been ripped apart in art school. Making work about the joy I find in something simple like finding peace and beauty of nature, it would have never been seen as enough. And I fought tooth and nail when I was in art school in order to continue working representationally. But now I'd rather spend so much more time learning how to filter clean water when I'm out on a hike, or how to survive in the wilderness for a couple of nights while backpacking. I want to solve different problems now because I've grown, I've matured, and I've definitely outgrown certain aspects of who I used to be as an artist. Being outside has also helped me grieve. I think that a lot of these concepts I'm talking about, these upheavals, they're really heavy. And without the ability to spend time in nature, listening to the birds and walking slowly, I don't think I would be where I am now. In chaotic times, it's really important that we get out and we stomp to get centered again. Stomping is what I often call hiking when I'm in a playful mood, or I'm feeling angry or frustrated about something I read, watched in the news, or had happen to me. To stomp is so important. And sometimes when you stomp, you will stumble. But it's important to just keep going. When you're out here as a creative person, you're going to see so much. When you're out here as a creative person, there's so much potency all around you. Everything is just gorgeous. You can see color, light. I think it's so important to remember as an artist that observing and looking is part of the work. being is part of the work. In chasing freedom over prestige, you're often going to come across moments where you're not going to know what to expect. A lot like going on a trail. You might read some reviews on all trails. You might decide that you want to follow a slightly different path that's on your map. But you don't necessarily know what your expectations are. And I think bringing that kind of an approach back to the studio, back to the way that you are as a person, as a creative, as a human, that's where I think you can really start to set yourself free. So let's all go ahead and make a bit of an effort to try and process life and the world a little bit more slowly. Start to really rank our values and ask questions if the things that we're doing are in alignment with them or in direct opposition to them. And let's start to be a little bit more stubborn about taking this time that we need to become our best selves, to recover, to heal, to sit, and ultimately to find ways for ourselves to persistently bloom. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, let me know down below. Until the next one, check out this stuff. See ya!
Don't look at me.